Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And this is a shout out to Julia, who has sent me an email about the state of play at a public hospital in Durban. And she says, this morning while at Wentworth Hospital on the bluff in Durban, I tried filming a scene of chaos, only to be stopped by one of the hospital staff who confronted me with, "You can't film here, it's a public hospital." Not wanting to have my phone removed, as she was quite aggressive, I stopped, but countered with, "What's happened to freedom of expression?" which she did not deign to answer, but merely stalked off. I did get some footage, but my phone won't permit me to share a file of 2 minutes as it's too big. So words will have to do. The following is a compilation of my personal experiences and what others told me. To get attended to at a KwaZulu-Natal government hospital, you have to draw a file of all your medical records kept at the hospital in a room, called at Wentworth the cards office. You must present your card, then you get a number and wait to be called, whereupon your file is issued and you pay the stipulated amount. Some patients are exempted from paying, according to their financial status. Only after that can you move to collect chronic medication or go through a screening process to see a doctor. Not a bad system when it actually runs efficiently. However, this morning, patients queuing up outside in the cold at 3:45 in the morning and let inside at 4 a.m. discovered that there was no one to attend to them at the cards office. Being patient patients, these mainly elderly, disabled and chronically unwell people did what they've done for years. They waited and waited. More people swelled their ranks and the grumbling started. The hospital has been under renovation for months and months, greatly inconveniencing both patients and staff. So the cards office has been squeezed into a confined area. Peering inside, I could see patients' files on the floor and haphazardly piled on tables. One of the files on the floor had been pushed under the dry walling so that its corner protruded into the passage next to the cards office. I pulled it out from the passage side and took it to the queue. At about 8 a.m., a couple of renovators strolled in to look up at part of the ceiling. There was still no staff to attend to the sick, cold, tired, hungry and irritated patients, many of whom have high blood pressure and heart conditions. At about 8:30 a.m., this was the situation. People wanted answers, but none were given. People needed direction as to where to go and where to wait, but only the queue marshal was trying to assist whoever he could. People needing to see doctors were still outside the building, on benches in the wind, sitting or standing down the passage from the entrance or queued in front of an unmanned counter. People who had come to collect their chronic medication were squashed into an area far too small for the crowd. Doctors were peering from the waiting room to see what had happened to their patients. Nurses huddled at their stations but didn't come out to help. One of the nurses told me the cards office staff were in a meeting. For 4 hours? A patient told me the reason for the delay was that the till wasn't working. His take on this was that the till just hadn't been plugged in. Two rather belligerent nurses were at a table near the crowd, waiting to collect chronic medication at the opposite window of the cards office. The nurses shouted at the crowd to settle down. Then, what was almost a protest march of patients who had become impatient of waiting at the entrance came noisily down the passage via a side route to the chronic medication crowd. There were shouts of "Viva" and "Amandla" as this mixed group of the loud and angry and the quiet and timid marched into tiny waiting area and forced their way to the counter. At this point, I was away from the area, but I could hear loud shouting, screams and bangs echoing down the passage. I got back to see some of the protesting patients trying to force open the door of the cards office and a hubbub of angry voices, including those of two nurses on duty nearby. Some really infirm, frail patients were trapped among the mob. I don't think anyone was hurt. A few people were filming the situation on their phones, and I began to as well. About 10 minutes after these patients had become aggressive, the cards office was opened. and one very disgruntled employee started handing out numbers as people presented their hospital cards. The angry comments and threats continued. In another queue for the same window was an elderly, infirm lady who had tried earlier to help everyone by entering the cards office to see if she could get the system going. According to an eyewitness, she was thrown out forcefully. I heard her try to phone the hospital management before the riotous procession of patients joined us. But apparently management hung up on her. She told me, when I thanked her for trying to help, that she had been hurt when the staff physically forced her out of the cards office. She intended to report the matter. Someone told me that Addington Hospital on the Durban beachfront has been completely closed due to water leaking down the lift shaft of the high-rise hospital building. So apparently the Monday numbers were doubled by Addington's patients. Other indications that this hospital is a bad place for sick people. Patients with epilepsy, depression and other illnesses have been receiving half to none of tablets they need to cope with their conditions during a given month. If the staff think about it, or if the patient asks them, scripts are given for patients to buy these themselves. For months, some patients have been told their medicine is out of stock. At least one epileptic patient had started having seizures again, on the reduced dose that the nurses had told him to take. Reduced because the medicine is out of stock, not because the doctor decided the patient was well enough to cope with less. In July, so many doctors had left Wentworth Hospital that patients without a prior appointment were only seen to the day after they had come to see a doctor. At this point, there was only one actual doctor, assisted by a few student doctors. And she closes by saying, something desperately needs to be done. Heaven help us if the NHI is actually instituted. I couldn't agree more. The brain drain is having a huge impact on public hospitals, and that is self-evident. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video, and please stay safe.